Okay. Hi, everyone. Last but not least of tonight's demos that I'm finally getting up, I wanted to do a little grayscale example so that you can see what glazing color over your grayscale markers can get you. So half of this I'm going to do in colored pencil and half of this I'm going to do in markers, but first I'm going to do the whole thing in grayscale marker. Cool. So I like to start by laying in some of my darkest shadows. I'm doing a landscape for this one, so for that, that's going to be a lot of these little like trees that are in the horizons and the different areas. And then we're going to try to cover pretty much everything except for the sky and some level of gray. The reason that you can use grays like this to prime all of your values. If you remember underpainting when we were in acrylics, it kind of does that for you so that as you move into your color, you don't have to worry about mixing colors as much to create shadows. You can kind of just go straight over the area if it's got a nice grayscale underpainting under it. If you're using colored pencils on top of it, it means that you can be a little bit more, textural or something with your colored pencil, because where these areas show through, it's not going to be white. It's already kind of prepared for the value of what you mean for it to be. So that is one thing that's very useful about doing this attack first. The other reason you might do it is if you're limited in your colors. So if you don't have a lot of colors, you can create a lot more tones by different tones of gray or amounts of gray underneath your colors. And it also can help if a lot of your colors are like really, really, really vibrant, which happens in several of the kits, that like all your greens look kind of neon or like, Crayola Kelly green when you put it down. Having these layers of warm grays or cool grays underneath it can help tone those so that they seem like a little bit more of a realistic, usable color. So we're starting to get a little bit of shadow and sculpting going on here. We have some rolling hills and the little trees, we're just doing them really dark. In the foreground, it sort of gets lighter for a bit, but then I did a little bit darker touch right at the very front to help us just vignette it. And some variation up in our mountain range. Not really sure what this is. Mountain range, various mountains. So here's our half and half. I'm going to do colored pencils on the left hand side and markers on the right hand side. So if we were doing an acrylics underpainting, the next thing you would do would be to prep all of your warm areas and cool areas. Since I used a lot of cool grays, I'm going to go ahead and prep my warm areas so those show through and allow the grays to be my cool area prep. I kind of forgot that the left hand was supposed to be pencil only, so there's only a touch of marker on it. I will not do any more, I promise. So the next thing I'm going to do is just slowly start building up colors. I want sort of like a pinkish haze on this very back skyline. You can see though that I don't have to worry so much about burnishing or creating incredibly smooth color shifts. I can be a little bit more freeform with it. I'm coloring this entire bottom area the same green first, right off the bat. Just to get some unity there. And you can see how the gray shows through it. The only thing is colored pencil is opaque, so it does sort of start to fuzz things up as you're going along, but you can keep working on it, or you can do a little less. If you're not burnishing it entirely, it's going to not show through as much. So I'm using some areas to create the shadows of the little house we're working on, adding some grays up in the top. Even that little touch of green on top of that pretty dark gray, just really suddenly that seems green, but also distant and shadowed. So you can see how quickly you can build up colored pencil on top of this. It doesn't have to be as controlled as maybe you would do it if it were working on a pure white background, right? Saves you a little time. I am burnishing in the sky with my white, because I'm going to go through and do a little bit of burnishing with my white on the main mountain first. Yeah, we'll call it a mountain. I think it's a mountain. I've decided it is. So as things fade into the distance, they often get colder in color and they often get fainter in value. So we're cooling those down with a layer of blue and then adding some white burnishing on top of it to kind of fuzz them, fade them out. So in these really dark trees, they're really dark. I don't want to go over them with green and now make them all bright green, but I can do a couple little areas and squiggles to show like maybe branches that would peek out from that and catch light while allowing the darkness of the maturity of the trees to stay marker. Working down here, I'm trying to create some more realistic greens and some color shifts, a little bit of pinks and reds and things in our lighting so that there's variation and interest. But you can just see how much quicker this was than doing it straight from the white page. And how it sort of like leans my colors more towards a more neutral palette, keeps them from being so vibrant, which otherwise I would have to mix, right? So now we're going to hop over to marker land. I did a little bit of the gray scale glazing with a color in the lantern demo, if you want to see that one, which was using more of the grayscale as like doing most of the heavy lifting, and then the color was just like touches on top. In this one we're going to use quite a few colors, but you're going to still see that the grayscale gives you a nice amount of like preset values that you don't have to figure out now. I can blend a little less. It's already sort of used up some of the like grain of the paper or the absorbency of the paper, so I've already like started to get really nice blends just from having that down. Once again, we're going to take the same green and cover the whole area just like we did on the pencil side. I'm going to leave a couple areas where the yellow shows through and some areas where the green goes over the yellow and kind of mixes together to create a medium tone. You can see the colors are really similar between the pencil and the marker side, but of course, yes, our marker side has a little bit more vibrancy to it because that's just what working with them does. But we're trying to show that you can really get to the same finished product with either technique, right? So I'm using a little bit of blue and cool, like a very desaturated blue, to do some toning in the hills to help us fade with that getting cooler as it goes into the distance feeling. I'm also going to use a touch of pencil in some of these areas to help us get kind of a foggy, misty difference and to unify the two sides. So the white colored pencil does a nice job of just like adding texture into a hill, giving you your highlights back. And in this case, there's like some mist maybe rolling in behind this hill. That's what I think it would be. It's a little Lord of the Ringsy. And it helps cool down sort of those background treatments. Apparently I turned it sideways at this portion. My bad. But just a few more touches of white color pencil and we'll call it done. So that is the difference in the two approaches between a pencil or marker being laid over a grayscale, and I hope that helps.